I mean, that's it. It's like it's in everyone's faces every day because of social media and whatnot. But the power of it is sort of understated because, you know, everyone thinks of these platforms and everything as like pure entertainment. But for a lot of people, it can be like, you know, it can be the key or their next career or whatever to much bigger and better things. And so it just seems like, why not give it a go when there are people who, you know, can start these channels or pages or profiles, just everyday people, and they get an audience and what they can do with that audience. And so it's like, you know, don't necessarily think I have any amazing skills, but, you know, I might be able to, or we may be able to relate to a few people. And, you know, we're not here as experts, just documenting our story. And so it's kind of like what Gary, like, I don't know much about Gary Vaynerchuk, but apparently what he says is just content everything. Make sure you document everything and then try and provide what value you have at the moment, or, you know, your story or whatever that may be value to someone else, and then see what comes of it. And so that's kind of, I mean, why not? Why not give it a go?
I think we both tend to have really good conversations with each other because we're both starting out in the sort of business and financial world. And I feel like we've got quite a bit of success for our age and for how long we've been doing it for. So yeah, we're not, you know, 30-year-olds trying to teach you exactly how to do something that we don't know about. We're not, you know, more like practice what you preach. But I think it's going to be more of a way of us sort of showing people what it's like to actually start and the little things that turn into big things as you start a business. And I think that there's really no space on YouTube at the moment of people showing their companies from the start, because all they do is they hop on YouTube after they're 35, 40, when they have the millions, when they have everything already together, and they try to talk to you about what they did 15 years ago, and it just doesn't work. I just don't think it's authentic.
Well, yeah, I would agree with most of that. I mean, it obviously has worked for them, but there's something missing, I feel, and I don't know if this is just us that we feel that, but it's like there definitely is. It's going to be interesting to see how this sort of channel goes, or this sort of conversation, getting contact with the people before they've made the millions and not having them, or, you know, made the great product or made a name for themselves. It'll be interesting, you know, even if nothing comes with no audience, just for ourselves to look back on in 2, 3, 5, 10 years. This is where we started, and, you know, what ended up happening in the next few years. So I think that's something really interesting. And, you know, maybe down the track, once we've actually gone somewhere, then people will find us and then go look at the archive of all these, you know, conversations that we had with one another. But I think it's exciting. And like you said, I don't think there is anything like this at the moment. And not to mention the hurdles that we've had to go through already. I mean, we live in completely different states. So how this sort of format of video will go is interesting. I'm interested to see how it'll be putting it all together at the end.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think the goal for us too at the moment is to have sort of weekly conversations, not sort of preaching exactly how to do things, but more us talking about our experiences with exactly what we've done, the money that we've invested in, through YouTube, through our own businesses. Obviously, I run my own business that's picking up. We've got about 15,000 followers on Instagram at the moment, 3,000 on Facebook, and it's sort of picking up its flow. And you've just started your own business as well that's about to take off. So I think the idea for us is more to document what our whole process in how we do things and how we got from nothing to actually being able to sell to people online.
That's right. And it's like, when you watch these, I mean, like half of the things I figured out that I needed to do when starting a business, I found through YouTube videos or through like random articles on the internet. I mean, there's so much information available at the moment. But if you read the comments, a lot of people are like, you know, oh, this is all, you know, good, and this is all good advice, but, and then they'll say something like, this bit is missing, or, you know, you've done it, you're the anomaly, or whatever. And obviously most of these things, you know, they make you believe are written from the perspective of someone who's made it, you know, who's already done all the great things.
Yeah.
And so I think it would be, sorry?
Yeah, which is not true. I think we both figured out that anyone can do it. Everyone's got the exact same advantages because everyone has access to this social media. And I think that's pretty much the key to everything.
That's right. And it's like how we sort of fit into the puzzle is like, we're not here to say this is 100% what you're supposed to do. I mean, we're not business advisors, we're not consultants, nor are we financial advisors or anything of the nature, but we are people who are trying to start a business. And, you know, in my community, that's not the most common path, but there's a huge number of people in Australia who want to have their own business. And I think it's interesting to become a part of that and just be a participant and show people what we're doing and show what works and what doesn't. And then also in the area of finance, everyone has to manage their money that they get, you know, whether it be with accounts or more advanced, what investment things do you go into. I think there's something to be said of people who are willing to open up and share what it is that they've done themselves and where they may have made money or not made money. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how it all goes.
Yeah. No, I think it's exciting. And yeah, like you said, I think we would be catering more to the Australian audience because, well, that's where we live. And obviously it's a completely different story financial wise between like America or Australia, and business wise it's the same because the people you're catering to it's completely different. And I think there's too many American YouTubers talking about finance and stuff, but I feel like you find very little Australian people showing you how they made their money in Australia.
That's right. And that's like, you know, you can call it a disadvantage, but it's just like, I know, I've been caught out by it. So there's, you know, who we were talking about and who we've been sort of into for the last few months is Graham Stephan, and he's really blown up, which is amazing. And it's like, you know, you always imagine, because they speak the same language, they just look the same, a lot of their ways of life are very similar. You imagine a lot of it's the same, even though in the back of my head I knew there would be some differences. I took a lot of his credit score information to be true in Australia as well, and then later on found out that some of those weren't exactly right. And if I wasn't to find that out early enough, it could have really impacted my credit score in Australia. So that's just like one example. So sort of coming in and filling that gap, or, you know, because there are a few sort of adding to the pool of Australian influencers, whether that be on YouTube or whatever, I think is important. I think it'll be cool.
Yeah, and that's not to say that the videos Graham does or anything are completely irrelevant to us, but it's more like,
that's right,
it's hard to follow because it's not the same.
That's right.
Because we do live in completely different worlds when it comes to anything financial, really.
Yeah, I mean, legislation is different.
Different.
Yeah, taxes,
yeah, exactly.
All that stuff.
So yeah, I feel like that's practically why we've decided to hop on this endeavor, which is YouTube. Connor, would you say so?
I mean, yeah, that's it. Like, we're just here, two guys who are trying out a few things and would be interested to see if anyone else is interested in what we have to say or what we've done or what we've tried. So yeah, that's the reason.
So Connor, tell me a bit more about Your Compass. I know it's the business you're about to start or have started. What exactly is it you're selling and all that sort of stuff?
Well, trying to frame this in a way that would be beneficial to anyone who would be listening is, I sort of took the approach that one way to get into a particular business is to go into an industry that you're pretty familiar with. So I and my business partner, Magella, we both met while working, and we actually worked for the universities themselves. And so we found, essentially, we were working with the sort of the department or the sector within the university that deals directly with the people who are thinking about coming to university. So a lot of the time it'll be high school students, or it'll be non-school applicants, which are essentially people who come to university or want to come to university not directly from school. So either it can be a dropout, or someone who's graduated years ago, or it could be someone who never graduated but is now wanting to come and get a qualification. All of those sort of fall into that category. And we found that just basic information about how the Australian higher education system works, that information was sort of being lost in translation. I mean, there are a lot of changes, fair enough, but still it seemed like some of the basic concepts that may have been around for a little bit longer, like how do you get the government to pay for most of your degree, and then how do you get the little amount that you do have to pay, how do you get the government to give you a loan for that, or how do you get scholarships, all of these sort of things, alternative pathways, early entry, adjustment factors, all of those.
Like you were telling me actually at dinner the other day how you could have gotten a grant for $20,000 and you didn't know.
Exactly. That's right. So my university, and there may be another university as well, but my university had a scholarship running that if you were the first in your family to go to university, and that's just immediate family, so like your parents and your siblings, you could have got $5,000 each year for 4 years. And that would have taken 2/3 of my tuition fee off if I'd just known about it. But I didn't know about it, didn't apply. And now am definitely kicking myself over that.
So practically, people that sort of apply for your campus or do a booking or do anything scheduled with you guys pretty much will take advantage of your knowledge more than anything else, because they don't explain that you could have gone to 20,000. They don't explain that you can get grants for so many things, and you don't have to be extremely academically gifted to get a scholarship. Is that kind of right?
Exactly. Like, I was definitely not, the top of the class or was coming first in any of my subjects. But see there, it was $20,000 that I had on the table. And there's another one. My partner, actually, she was eligible for another scholarship because some of her family went to uni. So there are all these types of things, not just to get you extra money, but to help you finish degrees faster and get better opportunities while at university that are kind of hard to figure out if you're even told about them. And so essentially we found that need in the work that we were doing for the university and decided that's something that we can fix ourselves. And so now we've started a business around it. So yeah, that's essentially how it happened. But I was sort of egged on a little bit by you, dude. Like your ventures into business are really what motivated me a little bit. I mean, I always knew I wanted to do something in the area.
Oh, really?
But yeah, definitely. 100%. Like, when I knew you were doing it, I was like, well, I'm not going to let him outdo me. Let's do it now. Yeah.
Awesome. I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
And that's good. A bit of healthy competition. That never hurt anyone. If anything, it makes things better. So yeah. Now that you've had to interrogate me a little bit, what would you have to say? Say you have someone watching. It could be anyone. You're not claiming to be an expert, but what would you say? Sort of someone would have to consider before starting a business, or if something's not right in their life at the moment, how could business help them, or having their own business help them, I should say.
Yeah. Look. I think before starting a business, that's a tough question. I think first of all, whatever it is you're doing, whether you're wanting to start a spin class online or wanting to sell a product through Shopify, I think the biggest thing to make sure you do before you start investing a whole bunch of money into anything is make sure there's supply and demand for it.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing is you do not want to, I don't know, I always use this because I almost did this when I was 16, is start a watch brand or something. Like, you do not want to get into that market because it is just oversaturated with all these different watch brands, and you're just never going to break through. And like, yeah, okay, look, you could break through, but your chances are very limited. So I think when starting anything, you got to sort of evaluate what the market is like at the moment for that product, and is it going to bring something fresh to the table, or is it just exactly the same as something else, maybe just cheaper? So it's you sort of have to weigh in exactly what you want to start with, and that's pretty much the hardest thing to do, because once you figure out exactly what it is you want to sell, everything else is extremely easy, and anyone can do it, and anyone can start making $500 to $1,000 a day, even like in your first couple of months. So it's not as hard as you'd think it'd be, but I would say personally that is the biggest thing for me to overcome. I think a lot of people, and I think you've got a story about someone starting the bracelets or something, and they just went into a market that's oversaturated, and they invested a whole bunch of money, and they just never picked up.
I mean, yeah, that's the thing, and I think we both are good examples of the reason we were able to identify this need, or the demand, if you will, for our respective businesses, was that because we knew the area. I mean, I worked for the university, so I knew when I talked to people every single day about coming to uni, I knew there was people who had no idea. And in your case, for elite football, I mean, you did it yourself, and you figured out how hard it was without, someone like you.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And yeah, your compass, obviously, from Australia, we both went to school in Australia, and we know that the set things the government has from high school to uni, or even from someone that didn't graduate to uni, is kind of confusing, and it's not very straightforward. And so I think that's where your compass comes in. And then obviously with elite football, I think, well, pretty much what we do is we are legally representative of players, and we send players from all over the world to some of La Liga's top clubs, so Spanish First Division. We send them to the first team clubs to trial. And I think where we come in is that, especially in Australia, in the A-League, there's no good pathway for a youth player to break into the first division here. There's nothing really set in for young players to come up and play in the A-League. And even if they do break in the A-League, the amount of money they make is pretty pathetic, because there's too much of a money cap in the Australian A-League. So I'm pretty sure every team in the A-League has a budget of $2 million every year. So for all their players, they can only spend $2 million in wages and transfers in everything.
Yeah. It's the same as the NRL.
Nothing.
Yeah. I think they just upped it to 10 million or something like that. But that just, I mean, it shows, like, even if they did have that sort of framework in place to help, develop all the the young footballers up to the A-League level, it's like, do many of them want to stay there, or would they want to go to the top leagues of the world, and that's where you came in. And obviously, based on, the feedback you get from the little advertising that you do, a lot of people do want to do it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think, obviously, I was lucky enough to make the contacts I did when I was in Spain and Portugal to then open the doors for all this to happen. But that's exactly right. It's going back to supply and demand. There's no one that can sort of offer players that sort of exit to the top leagues of Europe. Just like there's no one that can really tell someone exactly what they should do for uni based on their preferences, and then from then on go and show them, hey, look, you can get this grant and do things this way, and then finish your degree in 3 years instead of 6. So I think that's where we come into our business.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think like sort of wrapping up from this little, I don't know, like interview, if you will, about each of our respective businesses, it's like, yeah, definitely what helped us. And like we said in the beginning, like we're not saying this is the only way or this is the best way. This is just the way that we found worked. And we tried other things before. But these two, the ones that we're currently on, are the ones that stuck. And they're the ones that before we started, we knew the space very well, and we identified demand and have now taken that forward. And I think that is a very, worthwhile starting point if you're not exactly sure what it is that you want to become a business owner in, or what area it is that you want to make an impact. But starting with something that you feel like you have information on, or that you have your head well wrapped around, is definitely a good starting point. But yeah.
Yeah, and that's definitely it. And obviously there'll be future videos where we'll show, exactly how much we've made with our businesses, and how much money we've had to spend on advertising and all these different sort of things. But the main point of this is and the reason we sort of started this YouTube is to sort of show you exactly what it's like for young people starting off, how quickly you can actually make money if you just sort of take a chance on yourself, and not sort of preach in 10 years' time, after we've got millions of dollars, how we did things 10 years ago, because it's almost irrelevant by that sort of stage in your life.
I mean, yeah, that's exactly right. It's like, I don't know, it's kind of hard to think of it, because there is merit in looking at someone who has done really well for themselves, and them giving us an indication of what it was that they did to get themselves there. But there's just that time in between where you go like, how did that actually look? Like when they say, you've got to grind, you've got to, put in the hours, you've got to really try hard. And they always say there's going to be ups and downs. But what do those actually look like? Like, do you actually consider giving up, or how much exactly do you lose? And those are the types of things that we want to sort of show in this conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think, just getting it from the point of view of people who are trying it and who are doing it at the moment, and hopefully there'll be a fairy tale that everyone will get to follow, including us, where everything we try goes well. That's the plan. And then a year from now, we're looking back and we've made it. That's the goal. But if it doesn't happen, at least people will know what not to do. So.